Hey guys, it's Stephanie Grams. How are you doing? It's SEWPRENEUR here. And I just want to welcome you if you're watching the video. I am mainly just going to give you a simple podcast today, but in case you're actually watching, I wanted to go ahead and just have it on my website. So here we go. And I'm just showing you a free newsletter and stuff. But what I want to talk about is October is it is Mental Health Awareness Month. And I know that there are a lot of individuals in the sewing community that use sewing as an outlet to cope with mental health conditions. And I have never um, experienced quite what some others have experienced as far as that goes, but I did have a story I wanted to share with you. So grab something to drink and hang out with me for a few minutes. And I promise it won't be a very long video. So I am a mom of six. Now, if you see me walking around town, you will see me with four. And that's because I have two children already in heaven. I had a miscarriage in 1993. And then in 2001, my youngest daughter, so my fifth daughter, died as a toddler unexpectedly. And those two life altering events brought me back to my love and passion of sewing. So, a little bit of history here. I learned how to hand sew when I was around 7 years old, and it was like a partnership, tag team effort between my mom and my paternal grandma. And I grew up watching them create their own patterns and, sew and hand stitch and things like that. My grandma was quite the let me see, fiber artist, I guess is the name you would go by these years. She would crochet, she would knit, she would sew. And then my mom was literally like a pattern designer. So she and my grandma would design different patterns, especially clothing for um, unique needs. And so I grew up with that, and I'm number four of nine siblings, but I'm the only one that took up sewing, and that's okay with me. But if you followed me for any amount of time, I've been online, I think, since 2001 or 2002, shortly after my daughter Hannah passed away. And I've done all kinds of art stuff. I create patterns and I sell those, and I create different textile arts. But in the last couple years, my focus has really been on memory bears, specifically, sentimental keepsake sewing. And this story actually comes full circle, so hang out with me for a minute. So if you rewind 40 years ago when I learned how to hand sew, I never obviously at 7 years old, I would never think I would have a life or a business with sewing, right? I mean, most 7 year olds back in 1980 something or other, we didn't think about careers like maybe a 7 year old today would. Today's 7 year old has the internet, right? So they may already know they want a career in sewing and different textile designs. But back in the 80s, there was no internet, right? so, um, anyway, so 7 year old me from the age of like seven to, oh goodness, maybe 12 or 13, I would hand sew. And it wasn't anything fancy, it was just basically making yo-yos. And from there, I don't even know what I did with those, to be honest with you. Looking back, I wish I had those because that fabric was probably pretty retro and vintage in today's terms. But fast forward from 7 years old to 1993, and I was probably about 18 years old and suffered a miscarriage. I think I was actually going on 18 at that time. Yes, I was a very young mom. So my second pregnancy, unfortunately, I lost due to a miscarriage. And um, my ex-husband, my husband at the time, did what he could do to help comfort me and my mom and obviously my first child and things like that. And for some reason, I just don't know how, but the Lord just really brought me back to hand sewing. I know that the Lord used my mom during that time, and I believe it was my mom taking me back to a fabric store in town. And from there, I just started hand sewing again. At that point, I would buy panels. Panels have come back into style in the last few months here of 2022. Um, but I would take panels and I would take a piece of batting and I would hand sew the batting to the back of it, and I would sew. It's called slow stitching these days. Back in the day, I don't know if it was called slow stitching, but I would slow stitch around the outline of the picture, and it would make the picture almost come to life. And I would turn those into pillows. And so maybe one day I'll show you what I'm talking about on camera. Meanwhile, I put sewing down for a little bit. I went back to high school to get my GED and raised my daughter. And sewing really helped me through that horrible time of loss. And then between that time and that was 1993. Between 1993 and then again in 2001, I was married. I had now five children, and my fifth child, Hannah, she was born healthy, nothing wrong with her whatsoever. But she did end up getting a virus that killed her when she was 14 months old. So at that point, I just felt lost. Yes, I still had four other children to take care of, and I was in college. I was finishing up my associate's degree at Kent State University. And it's not like I had extra time, right? But I needed something to help me through the healing process of my daughter's loss, of losing my daughter, I should say. And you know, when you suffer something so life altering, and it doesn't just have to be the loss of a loved one, right? You could have a loss of a job, anything that is part of your life, right? Excuse me, I had to get a drink of water there. Um, so go back in time with me for a minute, and there would be sleepless nights. Obviously, um, when you're in a grieving process, you just lose track of time. I think you're kind of like in this time warp where you just go about your day, um, going through the motions of just trying to make it through the next minute and the next minute and the next minute, right? And one thing, my mom, again, I believe my mom really took me back to the craft store, the fabric store in town, and I'm like, I don't know what to sew. And in between those years, I'd made play clothes for my children, and you know, just odds and ends, but nothing of value, I would say back then. Again, we didn't have the internet. Not in between those few years, we didn't have a good internet, anyways. Not like what we have today, and we definitely didn't have a podcast. But I went back, I started making simple curtains and just odds and ends, honestly. And that I just can't stress how important that the sewing became for me just to get through these struggles. Now, why does this have anything to do with um, October Mental Health Awareness Month, right? Well, here's the thing. I don't think that there's really a right time or wrong time to sew. I think that if it's a desire, you just start it. You just go and you go to the store and you pick a kit, or you can go online now and get ideas for simple things to learn how to sew. Um, I would use sewing to work through the pain of loss, through the loss of my children. And, there were times where I would have feelings of depression, but it was not something that medicine or anything could touch for me. Um, and I'm not saying anything either way about medication or not. I mean, obviously, you've got to do what's right for you, and definitely speak to your doctor. I'm not giving you any type of medical insight at all. But I was able to um, really focus in. And while I was sewing, some of the thoughts I would have were just of gratefulness and remembrance, and just really being focused on hand at hand of what I was doing. It helped my mind not feel like it was racing so much. And I am born again Christian. I am a woman of faith, and I just truly believe that the Lord allowed that 7-year-old me learn how to sew at that time in my life, where it has been used through so many different obstacles that I have faced over the years. Um, Not just the death of two children, but also through homelessness and divorce, extreme poverty, just has not just become an art, a pastime now. It is truly something that I need to sew, like, literally every day. There's some type of sewing I need to do, whether it's just hand embroidery and making my own designs, or using a sewing machine or an embroidery machine. So, you know, I think that whenever you think about mental health and mental health awareness, maybe think of some way that you can use your sewing to help somebody, even yourself, get through that difficult time. I was just going to share something with you here. Hold on with me just a second. Sorry for the moment of quiet. Um, you know, if sewing isn't necessarily your thing, try something artistic, painting, drawing, writing, journaling. Um, there's so many things that you can do to help overcome and work through some of the stresses in life. And I hope that you consider, um, you know, how your art can help you and somebody else. All right, guys, I hope that you enjoyed this little podcast video here. And as always, go on over to SEWPRENEUR.com, get on the newsletter, and I hope you like and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Have a great day, guys. Bye bye.